What if Lewis had gone round the outside, as Nicky suggested, and he'd won that race? Would Hamilton then have won that championship? Would he be an 8-time champion? Would he be a 9-time champion because Max Verstappen never goes on to win?
This race was probably the start of their relationship, and that season at Mercedes really becoming difficult. Their relationship falling apart. One of those incidents in Formula One where teammates are just then completely not on the same page. And really, really battling each other. So, yeah, Hamilton had qualified on pole after Rosberg had dominated most of the races prior. So it was a big opportunity for Hamilton. But there's a long run down to turn one at Barcelona, and Rosberg managed to get a jump and sweep round the outside to take the lead. Then a couple of corners later. Who's at fault here? We're not, I think they're probably both at fault, really. I think
10
Rosberg,
years later, we're still not sure.
Exactly. Yeah, I think Rosberg was definitely, you can see if you look at Lewis's on board, Rosberg's charging something on his battery. It means he doesn't have quite have the pace. Lewis has got a tremendous drive out of the corner. Rosberg tries to block him off, or cover his overtaking line, pushes Lewis onto the grass. He loses control. They both crash out, and you get that iconic image of Lewis careering into the grass with his hands over his eyes in his helmet, because he knows what he's done. He's done the ultimate no in Formula One, which is do not take out your teammate. And yeah, an absolute disaster for Mercedes, and maybe a bit of foreshadowing as well, because that ended up being Max's first win for Red Bull Racing. Obviously that was sort of a bit of a maybe Star Wars Darth Vader moment, where the first time that you see this sort of youngling becoming a real force of nature. A huge incident. I think Rosberg and Hamilton were made to pay for all the damage as well. I think post-race, Nico Rosberg said that cost him about 350,000 euros. Which is not a cheap repair bill by anyone's stretch of the imagination. And then I think they both had that clause then written into their contract, so they were made to sign by Toto going forward. So basically, if you hit each other again, we're going to be sending you the bill. So yeah, a pivotal point in that season, and one of the most iconic of the last sort of 10 years.
That was really the flashpoint in such a long-running rivalry, wasn't it? Rosberg was in a great position, as you said, in that season, and ultimately the double DNF served him okay. But I remember more recently, Hamilton was saying Nicky Lauda came up to him afterwards and was like, "Did you see that the light was flashing?" He said, "Yeah, of course I did." "Do you see that he was derating? He didn't have the charge." He was like, "Yeah, I noticed." He's like, "Then why did you go to the inside? You should have just passed him on the outside," which is a very typical sort of dry Nicky Lauda analysis of just Lewis, you should have done it better. But that was an amazing flashpoint when the tensions were so high, and it awoke this beast of Max Verstappen, who reigns supreme to this day. I shed a little tear when I saw the teenage Max Verstappen winning. It was his first race with Red Bull, and he won it. And I was sort of gutted for Ricciardo, but yeah, it was an emotional moment. It was incredible.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. You look back, and I'm sure Max would have won another race, and I mean he did go on to win other races, right? But it's like the what if? What if they hadn't crashed? What if Lewis had gone round the outside, as Nicky suggested, and he'd won that race? Would Hamilton then have won that championship? Would he be an 8-time champion? Would he be a 9-time champion because Max Verstappen never goes on to win? Ifs, buts and maybes. Most of them probably not true, because
2 Daniel Ricciardo titles maybe in there.
Maybe,
hopefully. I would.
The alternate universe.
I'd take that.
Perez, the number 1 driver at Red Bull.
Yeah.
Who knows?